light all up in the camera. But anyway, let's get to this. I don't know if you guys saw the video clip, but you could find it. Uber driver gets shot at in the hood. Basically, he picks up some black girl, and she gets in a car, and she immediately like slumps in her seat. She's like, "Go!" He going to start shooting. He's like, "What? Who's going to start shooting? Why?" And then you just hear pow, 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 like he's getting shot at. He's driving. He's like, "What the hell?" She's like, "Just go, just go." Pow, pow, pow. And he goes, "Man, fuck this shit. Fuck this." I'm gonna tell y'all something. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't care if my channel get deleted. I don't care if all my followers leave, but I'm gonna tell you something. And I'm being just completely honest. I grew up in the hood. I don't know how many of you grew up in the hood, but I grew up in the hood. Now imagine understanding what the hood is like and not being from it. And now let me explain to you what I mean by that. I'm from the hood, so in a way, I do have a more intimate understanding of someone than someone who's never lived in the hood, but I have some compassion for the hood. Now imagine being somebody who's not from the hood, who doesn't listen to that type of music, and has no interest in ever going. Imagine how they feel when they think they are involved with someone from the hood. How do you think they're going to react? So, for example, if I were an Uber driver, I'd probably get fired after my first day because I'm not picking anyone up in the hood, I'm not dropping anyone off in the hood, and I'm not even driving past the hood. We're going around it. And if I'm not allowed to do that, I'm going to lose my job. Now, that's me. Someone who was grown up and raised in the hood. So imagine someone who just knows about it from most of the negative shit you hear in music, you see on the news, and you see on World Star, even the hood's own internet platform. Imagine how they feel. Like, just understand. Like, I can't get people to look outside themselves. Let's look at the world in a different way, right? Let's look at it like this. And I'm gonna be straight up and down. Let's say, let's say okay, I got one for you. Let's say there's a mom. She's overprotective. She's very, very overprotective, right? Overprotective. But she wants her son to do a sport. But she doesn't want him to go to a bad sport, right? So she's like, maybe soccer, maybe basketball. But then he's like, hockey. And she's like, oh, hell no, you're not going to hockey. They fight all the time. He goes, Mom, not everyone fights. She goes, yeah, not everyone fights, but it's by far the most violent sport of them all because they have the most fights. No one's going to argue that. Name me a sport where they fight more than hockey. You can't find one. Not in America, at least. In hockey, not everyone fights. And there's not even a fight every game. But they have the most fights in comparison to any other sport in America by far. You can tell me one where they fight more, you a liar. Everyone knows it's hockey, right? So why should it be different for, let's say, a mother, parent, brother, sister to be wary of their child or brother, sister, mother, father, whoever, their loved one, having any relations in the hood or with people from the hood? Why should that be different? Not everyone from the hood is violent. Not everyone from the hood is a criminal. But the most crime and most violence happens in the hood. Why would you expect that person to just be like, oh, that's okay? You wouldn't think that person would be wary. Now, I'm not saying race. I'm saying from the hood, because I guarantee you, if someone, let's say, that race against black people, if a white dude goes walking up in there with a do-rag on and bag and pants sagging, they're going to treat him the same way. They're not like, oh, this is different because he's white. They're not going to give a fuck. Like, this dude's from around those people. He's from that area. They're not going to want him around their children. You see what I'm saying? So I want you guys to just understand why people may feel certain ways they feel. And I'm not saying it's good that they feel that way. I'm just saying you got to understand. But as human beings, part of the civilization we have, we got to understand there's a difference between feelings and actions and your problem. I don't think I explained your problem well enough, but I'll try to explain the difference between your problem and my problem. So we all understand the difference between actions and feelings, right? You're a civilized person. You don't have to react to your feelings. If you see someone you don't like them, doesn't mean you have the right to punch them in the face. It's not your right to punch somebody in the face. They ain't even do nothing to you. You just don't like them. Maybe you're jealous, envious, whatever. But here's the thing with your problem, my problem. I try to understand this. I try to explain this. Me personally, I don't like watching men kiss in movies. Unless it's like really funny, like in The Office. That was hilarious. But typically, when the men are just going at it with tongue and stuff, I'm not comfortable. I don't look at it. That's my problem. Meaning, it's my issue. I have to deal with it. It's not affecting anyone else, right? But let's say I go to the movie theater, two dudes start kissing, and then I get up and I'm screaming, "Yo, what the hell is this? They shouldn't be doing that." I'm immediately making my problem your problem. And that's fucked up. Let me give another example. You don't like interracial relationships, right? So you teach your daughter or whoever, your loved one, only date a white person, please. Let's keep it a white person. I'd accept it if it's a white person, right? That's your problem. You don't like it. You tell your kid, your loved one, whatever. But if you're walking in the street and you see some random people you don't know, and they're walking past and you say something like interracial nasty motherfuckers, you're making your problem their problem, and that's where you fucked up. I believe in people being able to have their own problems. That's fine. I'm a deep believer in you don't have to like anybody. I always say that because no one has to like you. And that's one of the problems we have in this country now is that if it appears that you don't like a certain group of people, they think you're a problem. You don't have to like anybody. If you don't want an LGBT flag in your cubicle, you shouldn't have to have one. You don't have to like anybody. You don't have to support anybody. If you got a problem with it, good. Keep it to yourself. That's your issue. Don't take it out on them. You feel me? But at the same time, you can't force this person to wave a flag they don't give a fuck about or support it. They don't have to give a fuck about your cause. They don't have to give a fuck about your race either. So when people are spreading these things, I don't know how true they are, like Bush is stopping Black History Month, blah, blah, blah. A lot of white people don't give a shit. And they don't need to give a shit. They don't have to care about you. All they got to do is leave you alone and go on about their lives and let you live yours. That's it. No one has to like your ass. The need for hugs in this country is crazy. And that's what leads to things like, you're not calling me the right pronouns. I don't have to call you the right, it's the English language. I'm looking at you, it's logic. Why should I have to call you something else? Why don't I just call you by your name? Let's do your name. I think that's fair. You're a they or something to you, fine, but I'm going to just call you by your name. I'm not going to say they because I like speaking English and I don't want to mess up my native tongue. I like speaking English. You're not a they, you're a person, you feel like a they, so just give me a name and I'll try to remember it. Just like that. So a lot of people feel this need to be liked and accepted. No one has to like you. No one has to accept you. They just have to not fuck with you. That's it. So me personally, when I go back to the States, if anyone's like, I'm a they, my pronouns are this, I'm like, this conversation's over. That's it. That's it. Because I'm not going to play this game of, I'm like, yeah, he said, I'm not a he. I'm not playing that game with nobody. Good thing I ain't got a job or nothing corporate. I don't have to deal with that. So if I meet someone, they're giving me some pronouns, I'm like, this conversation's over. That's it. I'm like, nice to meet you. That's it. I don't want to get into this conversation. I'm not doing it. Because I'm not playing that game. I don't know how many of you play that game. That's your choice. That's fine. But I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. I don't got time for that shit. It's ridiculous in my opinion. So, and back to the driver. I really believe he's never going to the hood again, and I don't blame him. He might not even pick up people who look like they're from the hood, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. What do you expect? Especially from a person who has no relation to the hood, who's never been there, only knows the bad things. What do you expect? Now, things are a little different in business, like Uber or whatever. It's a little different in business when you're dealing with other people. Those kind of actions, if it's proven in court, could lead to big time lawsuits and stuff like that. So in business, you actually, to what I know about Uber, someone right here says, with Uber, you can decline as many offers as you want. I drive sometimes and avoid the hood at night. Nice. So you can do it. So no lawsuit. Awesome. But in other business practices, you can't really do things like that. You could get sued. So you got to be very careful. But in your personal life, you can absolutely do that. Now, I wouldn't put, like, for example, no Asian people allowed on my door. But if I'm having a party, I would tell all the people I'm inviting, don't bring any Asian people. I don't want any Asian people here. That's your house and that's your choice. Like, I respect that. If your house, your choice, your problem, fine. No, you don't have to invite anyone to your house. And this isn't me spreading hate. It's basically me spreading the fact that no one has to like anybody, but at least respect them, to leave them the fuck alone. To keep your hands off them. To not negatively affect them. Let them live their lives. You don't have to like anybody. With that minimum, with that low bar. If you can't respect that low bar, that's so low. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to date them. You can even discourage your family members from dating them. You should have the right to do that. That's your family. Because lots of people do it. Only date our religion. Only date our race. I don't think that's a problem. But if they grow up and decide to do it on their own and leave your house, there's nothing you can do about it. Because after that, it's out of your hands. But I feel they should have the right to do that. And I will always defend, this is like a while ago, but they were trying to make like a white-only dating app. And people started complaining. I'm like, I got to make a separate video about this. What the fuck is the problem with having a white-only dating service? Someone please explain that to me. Someone please explain that to me. What's the problem? What's the problem? Well, if it's public, the only problem could be lots of businesses can become diverse. Can become segregated. So you have this white only, black only, and that is kind of annoying. But let's just say, for sake of argument, it's a private service. They don't advertise anywhere public. It's private by word of mouth. What's the problem by having a private, white only dating service? I can't find one problem with that. Especially when it's private, which means it's spread by word of mouth. It's not on Google advertising, white only dating app. No, it's straight up just nowhere. It's just word of mouth and private. You could type it in and find it, but they don't advertise anywhere. What's the issue? There is no issue. Because if there's white people looking to date white people, how the fuck is that racist? When you want to date, who the fuck you want to date? It's like when I watch adult videos and sometimes they throw Ayo content in the straight section. Like, yo, what are you doing? Like, why is this here? Because everyone knows that happens sometimes. Like, you'll be watching things with man on girl, then it comes like tran on man. It's like, yo, what happened? How'd that get in here? Pause. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's the same thing with the white only app. If you want to date another white person, that's all you want to date, that's your choice. Why force other people in the dating app that they don't want and is going to make their odds of finding someone a little more difficult? What's wrong with the white only dating app? I don't get it. I don't get it, especially when it's private, just by word of mouth. I think everyone, if it's private, like your private home, your private club, you can make the rules based on how you want. But I think when you make the rules based on how you want, whether it's height, race, gender, religion, you just can't advertise publicly. Because I'm kind of like, what it seems like Trump is doing, he's trying to get rid of all these groups, and he's trying to make it all Americans, America. I like that idea. I've always kind of been like that, like Americans first. Like I always say, 3 things that matter in life that really makes the world turn. It's families, unions, and nations. Families, unions, and nations. Unless it's about a specific family, unless it's about a specific union or a specific nation, it doesn't really matter. So when a war goes down, it's families, unions, and nations always running the wars. Every war has been ran by families, unions, and nations. Not like every family. I'm talking about the powerful ones, you know what I mean? But it's always been run by families, unions like Soviet Union, European Union, whatever, and nations like the countries. Every time. And it will never fail. Because that's what really matters in life. Those 3 types of unions. Everything else, race, color, doesn't mean shit. You know how many Middle Eastern people were part of the SS and the Nazis during World War II? You know how many? Like, I can go on with this forever about how the race shit don't even make sense at the end of the day. But it's family, unions, and nations. That's what runs everything. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. But if you are from the hood, just imagine someone who's never been there, always hears bad things about it, and always seeing this bad shit. Even when World Star Hip Hop was the biggest black fucking website back in the day and it was ran by us, what did they show? Nothing but violence, fighting, and all the bullshit that they claimed that the news shows to make us look bad. And then when it's time for us to make something and support something, it's the same shit the news was showing. Same exact shit. And yet, other people are looked bad for thinking negatively on our neighborhoods. I'm not really making this a race thing because I mean, yeah, most of them are black, but it's not so much a race thing. It's really more of a neighborhood and mentality thing, like how you dress, where you're from, stuff like that. It's more of a culture thing than a race thing. It really, really is because a lot of times when like for example, something I've noticed a lot in my life is that racist people can have black friends. But usually the black friends they have are typically called like Oreos and stuff. They're typically the black kids who like listen to rock music. They're very soft. They're not aggressive. And what I realized from most of that is it's not that these guys hate black people and stuff. They hate the black people from the hood because the white dudes I grew up around who didn't like people from the hood, who didn't hang around black people from the hood, they also didn't want to hang out with the white people from the hood either. They didn't want to be around anybody like that. I've never seen it as like, oh, he's from the hood, but he's white, he's cool. I've never seen that one time. If he was from the hood and he was acting like that, he was just one of them dudes from the hood and they didn't want to fuck with him. It's more from my raising, from me coming up in the mixed area since I was 12, 13 years old, it was usually more about culture than race. Because I'll tell you right now, I've had friends that you'd call racist coming up. My homie Steve knows all about it. He's black. We've hung out with these guys who were damn near, like, I don't want to say they were neo-Nazis, but because they weren't. They were just kind of like, let's just say they were pro-white because they, okay, I gotta explain this because now it's gonna sound weird. If I become famous one day, there's gonna be, and I ain't gonna say no names, it's gonna be thrown in my face. I gotta explain it. All right, I lived in a mixed area, and it's called Kensington. You can look it up on the map. It's like southwest tip of Prospect Park. It was a middle class area. You know, we had houses and stuff, but we were surrounded by different shit. You know what I mean? If you go north, like on the west side of Prospect Park, it was Park Slope. It was mostly white area, but you see a lot of interracial couples. Very nice, very safe Park Slope, but mostly white. But if you go on the northeast side of the park, it was mostly black, Flatbush, very violent, bad stuff happens a lot, right? It's just how it was. You can crime stat the map today, it'll be the same thing. What happened was, and I've explained this before, there was a basketball court that they would use on a bad neighborhood a lot. They were doing construction on the whole park. So those dudes started coming to our side. That's the Casanovas, 8 Ball, those guys. You guys know Casanova. Troy Ave, the rapper, him too. They had to go from their side and come on to our side, which is much nicer, to play basketball and stuff like that. Now, going from their dangerous ass basketball court where there's Rottweilers, pit bulls, and violent people everywhere, to our side of the neighborhood where it wasn't so violent. I'm not gonna say it was pussy, but we had on our area, we had like, I would say the biggest group of kids we had were like the Italian kids. And all they ever really did was play baseball. The Italian, no, Irish, sorry. Not, oh, big difference. Woo. I can't make that mistake in front of them because they didn't get along. The Italian and the Irish in our neighborhood didn't really get along until the black kids from the hood started coming by. Then they got along because the black kids were starting shit from the hood, right? So we had the big group of Irish kids who always played baseball, stuff like that. We had the mixed group who liked to play basketball. We had white, black, Middle Eastern, everything, Hispanic, playing basketball. And handball was mostly the Hispanics, but you have a little mix in it. So the neighborhood really got along. There was no racial tension. Like if there was ever any, even a little bit of racial tension, it's like when like the Italian or Irish kids playing baseball would hit the baseball and it comes like almost hit someone in the basketball court and then they start arguing. Like besides that, there's really no racial tension. You know what I mean? And then the skateboard kids who were next to them. That was me and all my friends. We were white and black mostly, and my Hispanic friend Jesse and Bert. He was Hispanic too. It was a mixed group, whatever, right? So when the ghetto motherfuckers from Flatbush, 8 Ball and those guys, Casanova, when they came down and started coming constantly, they started robbing people. Number one, they just started robbing people. Like, they were robbing just like anybody who got off the train. Like, how they would do it was, and I remember exactly how they did it. And Casanova explained it in one of his documentaries that got deleted when he got arrested, but it was on YouTube. But he explained it, and I'm going to reiterate it. So what they would do was they would wait for people to get off the train. The last person in the crowd would get robbed. And what they would do is they would stand and literally hide behind cars or pretend they're tying their shoe or even pretend like they're skateboarding with us or something to blend in. And that last person who's walking, whether man or woman, they didn't give a fuck, they all jump on them. Now, I'm not going to say they weren't beating them up because from I've seen them do it numerous times because they would use us skateboarding kids as cover to look like they were just dicks. I've seen them do it numerous times, but from what I remember, they weren't really beating the people up. There was like usually four or more of them, and they would like one of them throw the guy on the ground, and it's enough to like one cover his mouth or something, and they would just pick his pockets, hold him down, because they were strong motherfuckers. They were big for teenagers. Hold him down, whatever, empty out his pockets, and run off. That's what they do. And if it was like a black kid or something they were robbing, they would take his sneakers at the end and run. Just go. And they would do this on F Train Fort Hamilton, Q Train Church Avenue, and other stations around that. But those two, they would do it constantly. But they were a little more careful around the Q Train Church Avenue station because they could get fucked up because that's the hood. So it could be a big brawl. But on our side, there's no brawl. Like, it's business people and nice people walking around. So no one's going to fight them. And that's why they usually did on our side once they started playing basketball. So that made a little bit of unity between the white groups in our neighborhood, the Italians and the Irish. Because now it's like, it wasn't so much the black kids, because we all called them Argyle kids from the Argyle Street area, Argyle and Church in Westminster. That's what we knew them as. So maybe in private, they're like the black kids, but the Irish kids fuck with my homie Steve. They I didn't really hang out with them, but they also hung out with my homie Steve's best friend David. And these are the blackest dudes you can find, very black in every way, and also from Flatbush. So it's definitely more of a culture thing and a behavior thing. But basically, when they came, all the white kids kind of united and stood up for themselves against these guys. And with the black kids in the neighborhood, we kind of united with everyone else outside the white kids, kind of, to go at them. But the truth is, I ain't even going to front. We were scared of them. And the reason why we were scared of them is because it's kind of like what people talk about in the hood now, like black people are more likely to do things to other black people. They were way more violent and aggressive with like the minorities in the neighborhoods than they were the white kids. And a lot of people say that comes from slavery, like they're a little afraid genetically to mess with the white people because in slavery time for hundreds of years, when we mess with the white people, something really bad happens to us. They typically would go for the black and Hispanic kids the most, or the Asians. Like everyone fuck with Asians or the Jews, but like the white kids who look like they know other white kids, like they're from the neighborhood, they would typically avoid them. Typically, not saying all the time, but they got it much less than we did. Much less than we did, which was extremely interesting, but that's kind of how it goes. You know what I mean? Especially once the white kids started gathering up and they got their baseball bats there in a group. Even if they had guns, they're not going over there. They're going to mess with us. Even if they got guns, they're going to choose to mess with us. That's just how it was. So, yeah, that's just how it was. So what I'm saying is my friends, basically, or people I was cool with, I go to parties and stuff, they weren't neo-Nazis. They were basically just white kids who bonded with other similar white kids, most were Russian and Ukrainian, to defend themselves against these intruders, so to say, from Flatbush and Argyle. And these kids I'm talking about had a lot of guns. They were the ones that people were afraid were going to shoot up the schools. They were the ones uploading pictures with AR-15s and shit on their Facebook, wearing all black. These were those kids. These were those Russian, Ukrainian-speaking kids who I'm sure would say to people they don't like black people, but it wasn't really the case. They didn't like ghetto people because they had me, they had William, they had motherfucking Steve, David. They fucking had Steve beating up white kids at their party for saying the N-word. Like one kid got too drunk. It's mostly white kids. I think me and Steve were the only black kids that night. He said the N-word. They let Steve fuck him up. Now, I know they all say the N-word when we're not around. I'm not stupid, I know. But because they respected us so much, they said, you heard that shit? Go ahead. Gave him some gloves, Steve beat the fuck out that kid, and no one did nothing. No one gave a fuck. And their look on it was, that's what you get for being disrespectful. Like, and I'm sure they don't care about them saying it, but they were mad because they said it in front of us. and they let Steve's much bigger than me. They let Steve beat his ass in front of all these white kids. They took pictures, made videos, they were laughing, everybody was happy. And they gave Steve extra drinks for that shit. You see what I'm saying? So, from what I noticed, racism most of the time isn't even so much about race, it's way more about culture. It's way more about culture. So I'm sure maybe some of you grew up in some areas that were heavily white. You probably had some racist friends too. And the one thing about having racist friends is when you meet their other racist friends, it's always awkward that first hangout because, they got to be like, hey, this is our friend, you got to chill out. No, they're kind of basically telling them, look, I know we do our little racist thing, but there's a black person here, so don't use the N-word, don't talk shit about black people, just be cool. Usually they say, be cool. And then you typically get to know each other, and from there, you're just cool. You know what I'm saying? So I know it's weird. I could make another video about racist friends, but this all comes back to the taxi driver and me trying to explain to you guys what I felt he meant when he said, fuck this shit. He's not going to the hood anymore. He's not picking up. He's not dropping off. He's not even picking up people who look like they're from the hood, even if they're going to a safe area. And I don't blame him. I don't. It's just like the mother who doesn't want her son to play hockey because it's the most violent sport by far. He doesn't want to go to the hood because it's the most violent neighborhood by far. Let me know what you think. I'm out.